The psalmist writes in Psalm 115:3, our God is in the heavens. He does all that He pleases. Again, Psalm 135:6, whatever the Lord pleases, He does in heaven and on earth, in the seas and all the deeps. So again, who do you think you are? You don't even like this. Some of you are uncomfortable because I keep asking you that question. Because you just think that that's just not the way that someone ought to respond. You just think that maybe it's not pastoral. Maybe it's not godly to get in someone's face and say, who do you think you are, when they question God? The only way that that's not godly is if it's not something that God Himself would condone, or if it's not something that God Himself would do. Go to Job 38 with me for a moment, please. Job's had some difficulties, shall we say, in his life. He and his friends are trying to figure things out theologically. Job comes to a place where he forgets himself, questions God. And in Job 38, not only in Job 38, but in Job 38, God begins to respond. Let's listen to how this loving God responds to being challenged and questioned by finite man. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind, it said, who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb, when it made clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it, and set bars and doors, and said, thus far shall you come and no further, and here shall your proud waves be stayed? Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under the sea, and its features stand out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. Have you entered into the springs of the sea, and walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you? Or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare if you know all this. And he continues and continues and continues and continues. And in essence, he looks Job in the face and says, who do you think you are? I'm God, I answer to no one. And if this answer bothers you, hear me when I say, you think too much of yourself. If this answer bothers you, hear me when I say, you do not reverence and worship the God of the universe the way you ought to. If this answer does not suffice for you, be afraid. Be very afraid. Because you dare challenge the God of the universe. And he will not share his glory with another. And he will not have his decrees challenged by those who borrow the very breath that they use to speak to him. He is God, and you are not. That's his first response. Secondly, you are a creature, not creator. You are creature, not creator. Look as he continues in Romans 9. Will what is molded say to the molder, why have you made me like this? Will what is molded say to the molder, why have you made me like this? God created you. You did not create God. God is not a figment of your imagination. God is the one who created the world, and He's the one who created you. So first of all, He's God and you're not. Secondly, He created you and not the other way around. Think about this before you go questioning God. Think about this before you lay charge against God because something doesn't agree with you or doesn't sit right with you. God created you. That means first that you exist for God's purposes. You exist for God's purposes. You do not exist at your own pleasure. You do not exist for your own purposes, nor do you get to determine the purpose for which you exist. God has determined the purpose for which you exist. And the shorthand answer is the purpose for which you exist is the glory of God, however He chooses to glorify Himself in and with and through your life. Therefore, you owe God worship and obedience. You owe God worship and obedience. Nothing else makes sense from the perspective of the creature toward the Creator. But is this not the problem that Paul identifies in Romans chapter 1? Look with me at Romans chapter 1, beginning at verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For His invisible attributes, namely His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor Him as God or give thanks to Him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. They worshiped the creature rather than the Creator. But note his statement. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. I don't like the sovereignty of God. My wisdom as a finite created being is not satisfied with the way that God has decided to save some and not save others. Therefore, in my finite created state, I will come before God Almighty because I deem myself to be wise, and I will demand that He answer to me. You fool. Thinking yourself to be wise, you have become the epitome of a fool. God is the creator of the universe. Bow down before Him. Worship Him. That is what He deserves. That is what you owe to Him. Obey Him because He made you. You exist for His purposes. Worship God. Obey God. Don't question God. If you do have questions for God, they had better be questions that are designed for you to be better equipped to worship God the way He deserves to be worshiped. Questions like, what would you have me to do, God? How would you have me to worship you, oh God? How may I know you better, God? Those are our questions. Not, here I am, God, explain yourself to me so that I can determine whether or not you are worthy of my worship and obedience. That's the wrong answer. Salvation is a gift, not a reward. It's a gift, not a reward. You question God because you think He owes you your salvation. Salvation is a gift, You did not earn it. If Paul has said anything up to this point in the book of Romans, he has said that again and again and again and again and again. You are fallen. You are broken. You are sinful. You are alienated from God. And God has saved you. God has adopted you. God has called you His own. God has wrapped His saving and loving arms around you, and He has pulled you to Himself, and you have the audacity to question Him. It's the height of ingratitude. It's the height of ingratitude. Listen to the attitude of Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel chapter 4. Next to Romans chapter 9. If you just want to bathe in election and predestination, just read Daniel chapter 4 and the salvation of Nebuchadnezzar. God calls his shot long before he takes it. Here's what I'm going to do to you, and then here's what's going to happen afterwards. Here's how long it's going to take. Verses 34 and 35. At the end of the days. What a statement. Which days? The days that God, through Daniel, told Nebuchadnezzar he was going to experience. 7 years, you're going to live as a wild beast. And he did. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my reason returned to me. Notice what he said. My reason returned to me. You think you're so smart. I'll take your mind from you. Do you know who I am? I'll take your reason, which is finite to begin with, for 7 years. Then I'll give you your thinking back, and we'll see what happens. My reason returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored Him who lives forever. For His dominion is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing. And He does according to His will among the host of heavens and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay His hand or say to Him, what have you done? Preach it, Nebuchadnezzar. Again, who do you think you are? Really, who do you think you are? I'm not saying that it's wrong to ask questions. But what kind of question are you asking? And what is your motivation?